Welcome to Chat with Me. We have a great episode for you today. I have brought in the wonderful, the intelligent, and the creative Mr. Rob Catto. How you doing? Is that a good introduction? Are we good with that?
Yeah, I'm fine with that. Yeah.
So, Rob, tell us about yourself. You work for Full Sail. Obviously, you have all the Full Sail paraphernalia. You've got the hat, the shirt, you got Full Sail Labs behind you or Fab Lab behind you. Tell us a little bit about that.
So I guess I've been working at Full Sail for 24 and a half years. So it'll be 25 in December. And I started out my educational career in teaching a high school principles of engineering class. And long before what we know of as VR today was around, I was teaching VR in a high school. And that would have been probably almost 28 years ago.
Woo! So you were like 10.
Yeah, no, exactly. So the whole VR thing that we're experiencing right now, which is about, I don't know, 6 or 7 years old, okay, is not new. And that whole component of my educational career is what brought me to Full Sail, because in 2005 they were starting a VR class and needed a course director for that. And so I I left University High School in East Orlando and went to Full Sail and started teaching VR.
What I'm most interested in and what I want to share with people today is this awesome course that you do, which is, I believe, at the end of a degree program. And it's called Positive Cause. Can you tell us a little bit about that course and how that came about?
One of our program learning objectives, outcomes for the degree program is, being a good citizen. Mm-hmm. And so the idea here was, let's create an environment that they can use all their skills to build something that's going to help somebody, but then let's make it help somebody that struggles with life's daily tasks. And so Project and Portfolio 6 is now Positive Cause, and they work on projects for a positive cause that's going to help somebody that struggles with life's daily tasks. And in the early, really before the class was actually set up, we were going in a different direction, and then started working with Joe Latimer, who is a colleague at Full Sail that was hit on Tuscaloosa by a car. He was riding on the bike path, and he's a quadriplegic now. Wow. And so just in trying to help a colleague, we started 3D printing things and doing things to make his life easier. Mm-hmm. And that was the impetus for, changing and redirecting the Portfolio 6 class to Positive Cause. And, to date, it's helped many people, but it's also really given the students an understanding of how to take what they're doing and apply it to their community.
Yeah, real life, real world, and make it, make it something positive. So the very first project I believe that you guys did, or that made the news, tell me about that.
So about 5 miles down the road from us is a place called SECO. They're a conductive education institution for students with cerebral palsy, okay, primarily. They help a lot of different groups that struggle with motor skills, okay, but primarily cerebral palsy. And before the advent of the simulation program, I was involved with the game development program, and they wanted us to see if we could come up with something that would be able to help them. So we had kind of like a game jam or some type of get together where we threw some ideas together and whatnot. Nothing really happened with that or came of it. But one of the things that we did get was a tour of their facility. Okay. And in walking through their facility, I saw all these ladder chairs. And I'm sure we could find a picture of a ladder chair, but
Mm-hmm.
walking through there, I realized it would be very simple to make those interactive. So once Positive Cause started going, and we had enough students to be able to, we're a new program, so we had enough students to be able to really evaluate that project. We contacted them and said, this is what we want to do.
Yeah.
They said, great, we'll help you in whatever way we can. And so they became our subject matter experts. And I, in my shop, built the first prototype and then handed it off to John Zabon, who's our course director, and the students. And they started building all the wiring and electronics and programming and 3D printing components. And we initially, so the idea with the chair is each ladder or each rung of the ladder has 2 strips of conductive ink on the back. And there are 6 rungs. So that gives you 12 separate inputs. And originally what we did was we took the inputs and tied them to music, to a MIDI processor.
Mm-hmm.
And so you push them and you would play music. And we handed that off to them for about 2 weeks and they were thrilled.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was walking through Walmart one day and walked past the TV and monitor section, and I went, wow, you know, if we put a monitor behind this thing,
Yeah.
we could take it to the next level. And so I spent $100 and bought a cheapo monitor and took it in and modified that, our current prototype, modified it and added the monitor on the back and then handed it back to the guys. And then the first thing they did was they hooked it up to a small computer that Intel makes called a Nook, and we added the Unity game engine on it. And their first set was hold the thing, it plays a note, but then the monitor changes color. And so we had, 12 different color combinations we could add. And, when we saw that, it just lit a light in the students and they took off with it. And so there's a lot of cognitive development applications in there, but also things like matching things. So ultimately what they've got to do is they've got to grab different rungs in order to work on their motor skills, and also hand-eye coordination and that kind of stuff.
Right.
We got the prototype done and we handed it off to them, and again, thrilled to death. In the meantime, I started working on a production model, and then 2 or 3 weeks later, they brought it back with all their input, which was incredible. And then with that input, we started to make changes to the application. Some of the applications they said really weren't going to work. Some of the applications were really good. But
And that's
more
all part of the
importantly,
process, right? That's all.
yeah,
part of the
no,
process.
absolutely, yeah. But more importantly, when they brought it back, they said, we've got an unexpected outcome from this, because it's a motor skill issue. Even when they're using the ladder chair, most of the time their heads are down and they're doing this. But because there was that interaction, they were literally lifting their heads up. And so they got the added bonus of them developing, whatever neck muscles or coordination they needed there. So that project, we completed that prototype. They have it. They've had it for almost a year now. But more importantly, we gave them all the IP rights to it.
Oh, wow.
So it is theirs to do whatever they want with it. And they found an attorney, a patent attorney that worked with them pro bono and filed for a patent. So it's now patent pending, which is pretty incredible.
That's wonderful. So they can reproduce this and give it to other schools or even homes. Let's talk about a little bit about what we got in the works for people who are on the spectrum.
Sure. we've been wanting to do something, for those that struggle with the autism spectrum. Um, and, naively, we went in and thought, we could just do this and help a lot of people. And then you came in and talked to us and said, there are people that sound is an issue. There are people that the visual side of things is an issue, hearing, and all of a sudden it was like, oh, geez, where do we start? Um, and you had never really experienced VR before, and so we took you into the VR AR lab and put a headset on, and you started looking around and seeing things that weren't in the room, but were transported you to another place.
It was so cool.
and in that conversation, it dawned on us that we could possibly address one area that would affect a lot of people that are on the spectrum, whether it's visual, oral, whatever.
Right.
And
That's
that
one of the
was,
things we talked about, because I have a daughter who's on the spectrum, and I've worked with people with autism for over 27 years. One of the things that I had pointed out to you, that transition is really difficult. Going to a new environment is really challenging. Anything that causes that type of stress in somebody on the spectrum causes you to go into either fight or flight mode. And we want to alleviate that by taking VR and giving them an experience somewhere virtually before they actually go somewhere, so that that anxiety could subside before they go, potentially.
yeah, they can be in a comfortable place like their home, put the headset on, and start their journey into that environment. And if things get too difficult for them, all they have to do is pull the headset off.
Take it right off. Yeah.
And then, over time, desensitizing them to that environment, to the point where, when mom and dad actually takes them to that site, that they're used to it. And hopefully that, I'm sure there's still going to be anxiety, but the
Right,
level.
but it can definitely reduce it, which is good. And when you know what to expect, things are easier. And that goes for other people as well, not just people on the spectrum.
Yeah.
But I did talk to a dad of a young man on the spectrum. And after we were talking, he said to me, this is exactly the kind of thing he does. Before they go somewhere, he'll Google it or he'll YouTube it and try to see if he can find photos or a video of the place.
Yeah.
This is exactly what we were talking about. I'm like, oh, this is beautiful. Because if we can build a database of places that are very generalized to us, like
Right.
Publix or Target, when we were able to readily go, places, then that
Right.
would be so easy for them to be able to pull those videos, so they're not reinventing the wheel every time they want to go somewhere.
Right. Yeah, and that's very simple. The other thing is, with the advent of the Oculus Quest, we now have, in this particular case, we're using the Go because we're tying the Go to a 360 camera, and right now the application only works with the Go. I'm sure that'll change in the future, but it is a completely mobile headset, so it doesn't have to be tied to a big computer, and the costs for the headset and the camera are reasonable enough that a facility could keep several of these setups and then have parents check them out.
Oh, there you go.
On. Yeah.
That's awesome. So they can use them in therapeutic settings. They can use them in school environments. It should be affordable enough for parents to have at home. And the main goal is just to be able to do exactly what we said, is to be able to give people a virtual reality experience, to be somewhere they've never been before, so that when they do go, they might feel a little bit more comfortable.
Yeah. So right before all of this hit the fan, we had several students working on this, and the first thing was to determine the workflow. And through the lab, we purchased a 360 camera. We already had the Go, and we started doing some tests, and we're very excited about the tests. And then you hooked us up with two people from
the autism community. Yes.
Because ultimately what you want to be able to do is you want to be able to do some research and do some tests before you throw this out there. And one of the things we had to do was that workflow between the camera and Unity, and that workflow between the camera and the headset. And fortunately for us, it's a little less difficult than what we had anticipated. And we're looking forward to be able to actually doing some test runs.
Test runs. I love it.
once
I'm
it's
excited
over.
for that.
Yeah.
Awesome. I think what you do is amazing. I'm so excited to see how this turns out for the autism community. And I look forward to everything that you guys are going to do, because what you guys do is absolutely amazing.
It is really changed the lives of a lot of individuals. There's a video out there where the students are actually talking about their experience, and it's really quite amazing. The faculty in the simulation program are absolutely incredible. We just had one guy create a ventilator, in the last week and a half.
Wow.
Pat Strace created a ventilator for, because of the ventilator shortage.
Right.
He actually designed and built a ventilator. But
Amazing.
John Zabon, who runs this particular course, just has done an excellent job. And
You all have. You all have. And thank you so much for coming on today and telling us
oh,
all
no
about
problem. My pleasure.
it. All right. You take care of yourself, and everybody, thank you so much for watching. And as always, take care of yourselves, and don't forget to take care of each other.
Okay, take care.